Hey guys, tonight we slip into the misty highlands of Tibet, where the air hums with secrets and the clouds, yeah, those fluffy drifters aren't just weather. Picture yourself perched on a jagged cliff robes flapping in the breeze as you squint at a sky that feels alive. The clouds twist, curl, and pulse, like they've got personalities, quirks, maybe even grudges. You're about to learn how Tibetan monks, those quiet masters of the mountains, spent centuries sorting clouds not by size or shape, but by their character. Sounds wild, right? Fair warning. Wrapping your head around this might make your brain do a backflip you won't survive. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Oh, and drop a comment with your city and local time. I love knowing where you're chilling. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing on a rocky outcrop, the kind that makes your stomach lurch if you peek over the edge. It's dawn, and the world below is still cloaked in shadow. But up here, the sky is a riot of pinks and golds. The monks beside you, their faces weathered like old leather, aren't here for the view. They're staring at the clouds, big billowing ones that look like they could swallow a village. These aren't just water vapor to them. They're alive, each with a temperament as distinct as yours or mine. You feel a chill, not just from the wind, but from the weight of their focus. This is no casual stargazing. It's a ritual older than the stones under your feet. The monks believe every cloud has a personality. Some are gentle, others mischievous, a few downright cranky. They've been sorting them for centuries, not with science, but with a kind of spiritual intuition honed in these highlands. You're wondering how they pull this off, aren't you? It's not like clouds come with name tags. Well, it starts with observation, the kind that makes your eyes ache. They watch how a cloud moves, how it shifts in the wind, whether it lingers or bolts across the sky, like it's late for a meeting. Each movement, each shade, tells a story. A monk might point at a wispy streak and mutter, "That one's a dreamer," while a hulking thunderhead gets labeled the brooding uncle nobody invites to dinner. You chuckle, but they're dead serious. This isn't some quirky hobby. It's rooted in history. Around the 8th century, when Buddhism was weaving itself into Tibet's soul, monks started seeing the sky as a mirror of the divine. Clouds weren't just weather. They were messengers carrying hints of karma or cosmic moods. Historians still argue whether this cloud sorting was purely spiritual or a way to predict rains for farmers. But the monks didn't care about debates. They cared about the sky. You're starting to get it. But then a monk nudges you, pointing at a cloud that looks like a smug cat. That one, he whispers, never listens. You laugh, but his eyes don't waver. Okay, maybe this is deeper than you thought. Here's a weird tidbit. Some monks claimed they could talk to clouds not with words, but through chants that supposedly nudged a cloud's mood. Sounds like something your weird aunt would try at a yoga retreat, right? Yet these monks perched at 15,000 feet weren't messing around. Their chants were precise, timed to the wind's rhythm, and if a cloud drifted differently afterward, they'd nod like they just closed a deal. You're not sure if you buy it, but the idea of monks negotiating with the sky is too cool to dismiss. You glance up, half expecting that cat cloud to wink at you. It doesn't, but it's definitely got attitude. As the sun climbs, the monks settle into a rhythm, their voices a low hum like a fan you forget is running. You're swept into their world where the sky isn't just above you, it's with you. The clouds feel closer now, less like distant shapes, and more like guests at a party you're just starting to understand. You're not a monk, but you're hooked, wondering what these clouds might say about you if they could talk. Probably something snarky knowing your luck. You're still on that cliff, the morning chill nibbling at your fingertips. But the monks don't seem to notice. Their eyes are locked on the sky, where clouds drift like pages in a book only they can read. You're starting to catch on to these Tibetan monks. The sky isn't just a backdrop. It's a scripture, a living text written in vapor and light. Each cloud carries meaning, a personality that reflects something bigger, maybe even divine. You squint at a puffy cloud that looks like it's sulking, and you wonder what story it's telling. The monks, though, they know. They've got this whole system for decoding the sky, and you're about to get a front row seat. Imagine the clouds as characters in a cosmic play, that wispy one trailing behind the others. It's shy, hesitant, maybe lost in thought. The fat golden one hogging the sunrise, bold, proud, probably a bit of a show-off. You smirk thinking it sounds like your old boss, but the monks aren't joking. They believe every cloud's shape, speed, and shade reveals its nature, and those natures tie into the spiritual balance of the world. It's like they're profiling the sky's mood swings, and you're wondering if they've got a cloud labeled hangry yet. This idea of clouds as sacred isn't new. Back in the 9th century, when Tibetan Buddhism was solidifying its grip, monks started treating the natural world as a reflection of spiritual truths. Texts from that era, like the Bardo Thodol hint at the sky, being a bridge between human and divine realms. Clouds, being the sky's most visible players, became key. Monks watched them to understand cosmic cycles, birth, death, rebirth. It's a mainstream fact that these early Buddhists used nature as a spiritual lens. But here's the quirky bit. Some monks swore certain clouds chose to linger over holy sites like they were eavesdropping on prayers. You picture a nosy cloud hovering over a temple, and yeah, it's ridiculous, but also kind of adorable. The monks around you are murmuring, now pointing at a cloud that's unraveling into thin threads. A restless one, an elder says, his voice like gravel. He explains that restless clouds signal change, maybe a storm, maybe a shift in someone's fate. You nod, trying to keep up, but it's a lot. They don't just see clouds, they interpret them like scholars poring over ancient scrolls. Historians still argue whether this was a poetic metaphor or a practical system for predicting weather. But the monks don't care about academic spats. To them, the sky is a conversation, and they're fluent in its language. You're starting to feel the weight of this. It's not just about spotting shapes, like, hey, that cloud looks like a grumpy llama. It's about understanding the sky's rhythm, its moods. The monks teach that clouds reflect the world's energy, and sorting them helps maintain harmony. A monk nudges you, his eyes crinkling with a rare smile. You try, he says, pointing at a cloud that's all soft edges and slow drifts. You hesitate, then mumble. That one's Chill. He chuckles, but doesn't correct you. Okay, maybe you're not totally hopeless. Here's a fun aside. Some monks used to bet on clouds during long retreats. Not with money calmed down, they're monks, but with extra meditation rounds. They'd pick a cloud and guess its mood based on how it moved. Loser had to chant an extra hour. You imagine them smirking under their robes, and it makes you like them even more. These guys aren't just wise. They've got a playful streak. As the sun climbs higher, the sky shifts, and so does the mood. The monk's murmurs grow softer, more focused. You're swept along your eyes, darting between clouds, trying to see what they see. That sulky cloud from earlier. It's breaking apart now, like it's finally letting go of a grudge. You don't know if it's spiritual or just science, but it feels like you're witnessing something profound. The sky's alive, and you're part of its story, even if you're still figuring out the plot. You're still perched on that Tibetan cliff, the dawn air sharp enough to make your nose tingle. The monks around you are in full swing now, their robes fluttering as they point at the sky. It's like they're conducting an orchestra of clouds, each one playing a different note in the morning symphony. You're not just watching anymore. You're pulled into their rhythm, squinting at the horizon, where clouds drift like guests arriving at a sacred party. This is no casual cloud gazing. This is a dawn ritual, a ceremony where monks sort clouds by personality, and you're about to see how it unfolds. Picture this. The monastery below is just waking up. Prayer flags snapping in the breeze. But up here, it's all business. The monks gather at first light because dawn, they say, is when clouds are most honest. Something about the sunlight strips away their pretenses, like catching someone before they've had their coffee. You're handed a small bronze bell, its surface cold and worn. Ring it softly, a monk instructs his voice, barely above a whisper. You do, and the faint chime seems to hush the wind. The monks kneel facing east and begin chanting, their voices weaving into the air like threads. You're not sure what's happening, but it feels like the sky is listening. This ritual has roots in history. By the 10th century, Tibetan monasteries were hubs of spiritual innovation, blending Buddhism with older Bon traditions. Monks used rituals like this to align with nature's cycles, believing it kept the world in balance. That's the mainstream bit, but here's the quirky one. Some monks claimed certain clouds would dance to their chants, shifting shapes as if showing off. You glance at a cloud that looks suspiciously like it's doing a slow twirl, and you're half convinced they're onto something. Or maybe you're just sleep-deprived. The monk system is meticulous. They watch how clouds interact. Does one bully its way through others, or does it hang back polite and reserved? A monk points at a towering, creamy cloud and says, "That one's generous, gives rain freely." You nod, but then he gestures at a thin, streaky one. Greedy. Hoards water. You stifle a laugh, picturing clouds bickering over who gets to rain first. But their focus is unshakable. They're sorting these personalities to understand the sky's mood, which they believe reflects the spiritual health of the land. Historians still argue whether this was a meteorological trick or pure mysticism. But up here, it feels like both. You're starting to notice details you'd normally miss. The way a cloud's edges fray like it's nervous. The way another seems to glow as if it's got a secret. The monks encourage you to speak your observations, so you point at a lumpy cloud and mutter, "That one's grumpy." A younger monk grins, whispering, "Good." But it's more stubborn. You're getting the hang of it, even if you feel like a kid trying to read a book upside down. The bell in your hand feels heavier now, like it's tying you to this moment. Here's a light joke for you. Why don't clouds ever get lost? Because the wind's always giving them directions. You chuckle, but the monks don't. They're too busy watching a cloud that's unraveling like a bad haircut. Their chants shift deeper now, and you swear the air feels thicker. You're not sure if it's the altitude or the ritual, but something's stirring. The clouds seem closer, almost personal, like they're sizing you up. You remember that cat cloud from earlier, the smug one? It's gone, replaced by a new crowd, and you're weirdly disappointed, like you lost a friend. As the sun crests the peaks, the ritual slows. The monks' voices fade, and they bow to the sky, a gesture that feels both humble and profound. You're left breathless, not from the climb, but from the sense that you've glimpsed something ancient. The clouds are still there drifting, but now they feel like more than vapor. They're characters, stories, maybe even souls. You're hooked, and the monks know it. They're already motioning you to follow them for the next step. You're still up on that windy Tibetan cliff, the dawn ritual fading as the monks shift gears. The sky's a bustling stage, now clouds strutting and slinking like actors in a play you're just starting to understand. You're not just gawking anymore. You're leaning in, trying to crack the code of how these monks sort clouds by personality. It's like they've got a cosmic HR department filing each cloud under cheerful moody or total diva. You're itching to know the details. How do they decide which clouds got what vibe? The monks, calm as ever, are about to school you. Imagine you're holding a mental checklist, ticking off traits like you're sizing up a blind date. The monks watch a cloud's shape, round and soft, means nurturing, jagged and sharp screams, troublemaker. Speed matters too. A cloud that dawdles is patient, while one zipping across the skies probably got a short fuse. Color's a big deal. Golden clouds are wise, gray ones brooding. You spot a puffy, slow mover glowing like fresh cream and think, that one's the grandma of clouds baking cosmic cookies. A monk overhears and nods, muttering, kindly yes. You're low-key proud. But then he points at a dark, churning cloud. Angry, he says, yikes, that one's definitely not invited to the picnic. This system's got historical heft. In the 11th century, Tibetan monasteries were like spiritual think tanks, codifying rituals to interpret nature. Monks developed detailed taxonomies for everything plants, stars, clouds, believing each held clues to the universe's pulse. That's the mainstream fact. But here's the quirky tidbit. Some monks thought clouds had moods that could rub off on people, like catching a bad vibe from a grumpy neighbor. They'd avoid meditating under certain clouds, claiming it messed with their focus. You picture a monk side-eyeing a cloud like, not today, Debbie Downer, and it's hard not to laugh. The monk's method isn't random. It's like profiling with a spiritual twist. They study how clouds interact. Does one merge with another, sharing space like a good roommate, or does it shove others aside? All ego and bluster. You're watching two clouds now. One's a wispy tag-along, trailing a bigger, fluffier one. Loyal, a monk whispers. You get it. Some clouds are ride or die. But then there's a lone, jagged cloud lurking at the edge of the sky, and the monks' faces tighten. Rebel one says. Historians still argue whether this personality sorting was symbolic or a way to forecast weather patterns. But up here, it feels like the clouds are spilling their secrets. You're trying to keep up your eyes darting between clouds like you're cramming for a test. A monk hands you a small notebook, its pages brittle and smelling of old wood. Write what you see, he says. You scribble about a cloud that's all curves and soft glow, calling it the optimist. The monk peeks and grunts approval, but adds, also vain. Okay, so clouds can be complex, like that friend who's super nice but checks their reflection every 5 seconds. You're starting to see the sky as a soap opera full of drama and alliances. Here's a quick joke. Why did the cloud go to therapy? Too many identity crises. You smirk, but the monks are focused their fingers, tracing invisible lines in the air. They're mapping the clouds' paths, noting which ones linger over the monastery like they're eavesdropping. You remember that generous cloud from the dawn ritual, the one that gives rain freely? It's still here, looking smugger than ever. You're half tempted to wave at it, but you don't want the monks thinking you're nuts. As the morning warms the sky, shifts clouds rearranging like they've got places to be. The monks' voices are a low hum guiding you deeper into their world. You're not just observing now. You're feeling the clouds, their personalities brushing against your thoughts. That rebel cloud. It's still out there, defiant, and you can't help but respect its vibe. You're hooked. Your notebook filling up, and the monks are watching you with quiet amusement, like they know you're in way over your head. You're still on that Tibetan cliff, the sky now, a sprawling canvas of clouds that feel more like old friends than weather. Your notebook's clutched tight, scribbled with notes about optimistic and vain clouds, and you're starting to get why the monks are so obsessed. They're not just sorting clouds by personality, they're tapping into a tradition that's been around forever, rooted in ancient Tibetan mysticism. You're about to dive into the origins of this whole cloud sorting deal, and it's like peeling back the layers of a story that's half spiritual, half cosmic soap opera. The monk's calm focus pulls you in, and you're ready to unravel the past. Picture yourself stepping back in time, way back to the 7th century, when Tibet was a wild mix of warring tribes and wandering mystics. The sky was their map, their oracle, their Netflix. Clouds weren't just fluff. They were sign spirits, maybe even gods in disguise. The monks, or their shamanic predecessors, watched them obsessively, believing each one carried a piece of the universe's plan. You're imagining a grizzled holy man squinting at a storm cloud, muttering, "That one's got beef with the mountain spirits." It's not so different from what you're doing now, except you've got a notebook instead of a yak hair cloak. This cloud sorting tradition took shape when Buddhism rolled into Tibet around the 8th century, blending with older Bon beliefs. Historical records, like the annals of the Tibetan Empire, show monks using natural phenomena to guide rituals from planting crops to blessing kings. Clouds were prime real estate for divine messages. That's the mainstream fact. But here's the quirky bit. Some early texts claim monks could summon specific clouds by burning rare herbs like they were dialing up a cosmic Uber. You picture a monk waving smoke at the sky, hoping for a chill cloud. And yeah, it's a stretch, but it makes you grin. The monks around you aren't burning herbs, but they're deep in their craft. An elder explains that cloud sorting started as a way to read the world's karma. A sky full of gentle clouds meant harmony. Too many rebels spelled trouble. You glance at that jagged lone cloud from earlier, yep, still sulking out there, like it's plotting a coup. The monks believe these personalities aren't random. They're tied to cosmic cycles, maybe even the moods of deities. Historians still argue whether this was a practical weather forecasting trick or pure spiritual poetry. But the monks treat it like gospel. You're flipping through your notebook, noticing how your descriptions grumpy loyal echo the monks' terms. It's like you're channeling their ancestors, and it's a little spooky. A younger monk leans over, pointing at a cloud that's all soft curves and faint glow. "What's that one?" he asks, testing you. You hesitate, then say, "Hopeful, but a bit clingy." He laughs a rare sound and says, "Close. It's faithful." You're getting better, but you're also realizing how deep this goes. These aren't just labels. They're a way of seeing the world as alive, connected. Here's a quick joke. Why don't clouds ever retire? They're too busy raining on everyone's parade. You smirk, but the monks are focused, their eyes tracing a cloud that's unraveling into wisps. They call it sorrowful, and you feel a pang, like the sky's mourning something. The elder explains that ancient monks used these observations to guide villages, warning of droughts, blessing fields, even settling disputes. A sorrowful cloud might mean it's time to pray, not plant. You're struck by how practical this mysticism was, like a spiritual weather app. As the sun climbs the sky, shifts clouds drifting like they're late for a meeting. The monks' voices are a steady hum pulling you deeper into their world. You're starting to see the sky not as empty space, but as a living story, each cloud a chapter. You remember that generous cloud from the dawn ritual still looming like it owns the place. You're half tempted to ask it for a loan, but you don't want to push your luck. The monks are watching you now, their eyes saying you're not just a guest, you're part of this, at least for today. You're still perched on that Tibetan cliff, the sky a restless parade of clouds that seem to know you're watching. Your notebook's getting messy, filled with scribbles about faithful and sorrowful clouds, and you're starting to feel like an apprentice in this ancient art. The monks are at it again, their eyes flicking between clouds and the horizon. But now they're talking about something new. The wind. Not just any wind, mind you, but the kind they believe carries messages, whispering secrets that shape a cloud's personality. You're about to learn how these breezes aren't just moving air. They're the sky's gossip network, and the monks are all ears. Picture yourself leaning into a gust, your hair whipping around like it's got its own agenda. The monks say the wind isn't random. It's a courier delivering moods and motives to the clouds. A sharp, biting wind might turn a cloud grumpy, while a soft, warm one coaxes out its kinder side. You're watching a puffy cloud now, the one you called hopeful earlier, and it's fluffing up like it just got good news. A monk nods, saying, "The south wind spoke to it." You're half expecting him to pull out a wind-to-cloud translator app, but his calm certainty makes you pause. Maybe there's something to this. This belief has historical roots. In the 12th century, Tibetan Buddhist texts like the Kalachakra Tantra describe the elements earth, water, fire, air as interconnected forces carrying spiritual energy. Wind was seen as a messenger linking the heavens to the human world. That's the mainstream fact. But here's the quirky tidbit. Some monks claimed they could hear the wind's voice, not as words, but as vibrations in their bones during deep meditation. You imagine a monk sitting cross-legged, nodding like he's on a cosmic phone call, and it's equal parts wild and endearing. The monks around you are tuning in, now their faces tilted into the breeze. They're not just feeling the wind, they're reading it like it's dropping hints about the cloud's next move. An elder points at a streaky cloud, its edges fraying like a bad haircut. North wind, he says, makes it restless. You jot that down, wondering if you'll ever look at a breeze the same way again. The system's complex. A steady wind means stable cloud personalities, while a choppy one stirs up troublemakers. Historians still argue whether this wind-cloud connection was a poetic metaphor or an early stab at meteorology. But up here, it's as real as the rock under your feet. You're trying it now, closing your eyes and letting the wind tug at your sleeves. It's cool, insistent, like it's nudging you to pay attention. You open your eyes and spot a cloud that's all sharp angles darting across the sky. That one's antsy, you whisper, and a younger monk grins. Wind's fault, he says, like it's obvious. You're starting to get the hang of this, but it's like learning a language where every gust is a syllable. That generous cloud from the dawn ritual, it's still hanging out looking smug as ever, probably because it got a pep talk from a friendly breeze. Here's a quick joke. Why's the wind so chatty? It's got too many cloud friends to gossip with. You smirk. But the monks are focused their fingers, tracing the air like they're untangling invisible threads. They're mapping how the wind shifts the clouds' paths, noting which ones resist and which ones go with the flow. You remember that rebel cloud, the jagged loner from earlier. It's still out there fighting the wind like it's got a point to prove. You kind of admire its stubbornness, even if it's making the monks frown. As the morning stretches on, the wind picks up swirling around you like it's showing off. The monks' chants deepen, syncing with the gusts, and you swear the clouds are reacting, shifting just a bit faster. You're not sure if it's the altitude messing with your head, but the sky feels alive like it's whispering back. Your notebook's open, but you're too caught up to write. The wind's carrying something, maybe a message, maybe just a vibe. And you're starting to think those old monks weren't wrong about hearing it in their bones. You're still up on that Tibetan cliff, the wind. Now a cheeky guest tugging at your clothes while the sky churns with clouds that feel like they're sizing each other up. Your notebook's a mess of notes about restless clouds and chatty winds, and you're starting to see the monk's world as a cosmic drama. Today, though, things are getting spicy. The monks are locked in a quiet but intense debate, their voices low as they point at a massive dark cloud roiling on the horizon. It's not just any cloud, it's a storm brewer, and they're arguing over whether it's got a rebellious spirit or just a bad attitude. You're pulled into the fray, wondering if clouds can really be troublemakers, or if the monks are reading too much into the weather. Picture this. The sky's split like a stage in a play. On one side, soft golden clouds drift like they're humming a lullaby. On the other, this hulking thunderhead looms, all sharp edges and brooding grays, like it's about to crash the party. The monks call it a storm spirit, and they're not thrilled. Some say it's defiant, a cloud that scorns the natural order, spitting lightning to prove a point. Others argue it's just chaotic, not evil. just a cloud having a really bad day. You're watching it churn. And yeah, it looks like it's got a chip on its shoulder. You half expect it to flip the bird at the monastery. This debate's got historical roots. In the 13th century, Tibetan Buddhist scholars, like those at Sakya Monastery, wrote about nature's dualities: calm versus chaos, harmony versus disruption. Storm clouds were often seen as tests challenging monks to maintain spiritual balance. That's the mainstream fact. But here's the quirky bit. Some monks believed stormy clouds were possessed by minor deities who got cranky when ignored. They'd offer extra prayers to calm these clouds, like appeasing a grumpy neighbor with cookies. You picture a monk chanting at a thunderhead, hoping it'll chill, and it's both absurd and kind of sweet. The monks around you are splitting hairs now. An elder insists this storm cloud's a rebel, pointing to its jagged shape and the way it's bullying smaller clouds out of its path. It defies the wind, he says, frowning. A younger monk disagrees, saying it's just confused, pushed around by clashing winds from earlier. You're trying to keep up, jotting notes like rebel versus confused cloud drama. Historians still argue whether these debates were about spiritual symbolism or practical weather prediction. But up here, it's personal. The monks treat this cloud like it's got a rap sheet, and you're starting to wonder if they're onto something. You pipe up, pointing at the storm cloud's dark core. Maybe it's just stressed, you say, half joking. The younger monk chuckles, but the elder shoots you a look like you just insulted his grandma. Okay. Note to self, don't psychoanalyze clouds yet. Still, you're hooked. Watching the thunderhead roll closer, its edges flickering with faint lightning. It's got presence, like that one friend who always stirs up drama, but you can't look away. You remember that generous cloud from the dawn ritual. It's nowhere in sight, probably hiding from this bully. Here's a quick joke. Why don't storm clouds make friends? They keep shocking everyone. You smirk, but the monks are too busy debating their voices rising just a bit. They're gesturing at the sky, tracing the cloud's path like detectives. The elder insists rebellious clouds signal imbalance, maybe in the monastery, maybe in the world. The younger monk counters that chaos is natural, just part of the sky's cycle. You're torn, but you're also noticing how the other clouds seem to steer clear, like they know this storm spirit's bad news. As the debate simmers, the air grows heavy, the kind of thick that makes your skin prickle. The monks' chants start up again, softer now, like they're trying to talk the cloud down. You're not sure if it's working, but the storm cloud slows its edges, softening just a tad. Maybe it's listening, or maybe you're just caught up in the moment. Either way, the sky feels like a battlefield, and you're right in the middle, notebook in hand, wondering if clouds can really pick fights, or if the monks just love a good story. You're still on that Tibetan cliff, the air now thick with the threat of that brooding storm cloud, its dark bulk still looming like it's daring the monks to make a move. Your notebook's crammed with notes about rebellious clouds and whispering winds, and you're starting to feel like you're in a skybound soap opera. The monks have calmed their debate, but their eyes keep flicking to the horizon, where clouds drift with a weight you're beginning to understand. Now they're dropping a new bombshell. Clouds don't just have personalities, they might be tied to reincarnation, reflecting souls cycling through the cosmic churn. You're about to dive into this mind-bending idea, wondering if that grumpy thunderhead could be someone's great uncle making a comeback. Picture yourself staring at a cloud that's all soft wisps curling like it's daydreaming. The monks say it's a young soul, fresh from rebirth, still figuring out its place in the sky. That storm cloud from earlier. An old soul, they claim heavy with the weight of past lives, maybe a bit cranky from all the baggage. You're trying to wrap your head around this, imagining clouds as spiritual commuters on a reincarnation highway. It's wild, but the monk's calm certainty makes you lean in like you're about to crack the code of the universe. This belief has historical roots. In the 14th century, Tibetan Buddhism's Bardo Thodol, the so-called Tibetan Book of the Dead, described the afterlife as a journey through realms where souls transition between lives. Monks saw parallels in nature, with clouds as fleeting forms dissolving and reforming like souls. That's the mainstream fact. But here's the quirky tidbit. Some monks believed certain clouds chose to linger over sacred sites, carrying the essence of enlightened beings. You picture a cloud parked over a temple, radiating guru vibes, and it's equal parts bizarre and charming. The monks around you are pointing at a thin, silvery cloud, now calling it a seeker, a soul searching for its next life. It moves with purpose. An elder says, his voice soft but firm. You jot that down. Noticing how the cloud seems to glide, almost deliberate, like it's got a map. The reincarnation angle adds a layer to their sorting system. Clouds aren't just moody or kind. They're mirrors of existence, each one a snapshot of a soul's journey. Historians still argue whether this was a poetic metaphor or a literal belief. But up here, it feels like the sky's whispering lives, not just weather. You're testing the idea, eyeing a plump golden cloud that's practically glowing. That one's content, you venture, thinking it looks like it's nailed enlightenment. A younger monk nods, saying, settled, at peace. You're stoked, but then he points at that storm cloud still sulking out there. That one carries burdens, he says. You're starting to wonder if it's got unresolved karma, like forgetting to call its mom in a past life. The thought makes you smirk, but the monk's focus keeps you grounded. This isn't just cloud watching, it's soul watching. Here's a quick joke. Why don't clouds fear death? They know they'll just come back as rain. You chuckle, but the monks are busy. Their chants weaving into the breeze, like they're coaxing the clouds to spill their stories. You remember that generous cloud from the dawn ritual, its back looking smug as ever, maybe reincarnated from some saintly soul. The monk's system is clicking now. A cloud's personality isn't random. It's shaped by its spiritual weight, its place in the rebirth cycle. You're scribbling furiously, trying to keep up your notebook, a jumble of seekers and settled souls. As the morning stretches, the sky shifts clouds, drifting like they're on their own karmic errands. The monks' voices are a steady hum, guiding you deeper into their world. You're not just seeing clouds anymore. You're seeing lives, each one a fleeting shape in the sky's endless story. That storm cloud. It's still out there, heavy and defiant, like it's got a score to settle. You're half tempted to ask it, what's up? But you don't want to mess with its vibe. The monks are watching you, their eyes saying you're starting to get it, even if your head's spinning like a prayer wheel. You're still on that Tibetan cliff, the sky a swirling tapestry of clouds, that now feel like old souls with stories to tell. Your notebook's a chaotic mix of seekers and settled clouds, and you're starting to sense the weight of this reincarnation idea. The monks are moving now, beckoning you to follow as they climb higher, their robes snapping in the wind. You're heading to a jagged peak where the air is so thin it feels like breathing through a straw. This isn't just a hike, it's sacred altitude training where the monks say the sky's clearer, the clouds' personalities sharper, like tuning a radio to catch a distant signal. You're about to find out why height matters in their cloud sorting game. Picture yourself trudging up a narrow path, pebbles skittering under your boots. The monastery's a speck below prayer flags, tiny bursts of color against the gray. The monks move like they were born on these slopes, while you're huffing, wondering if you should have skipped that extra breakfast momo. Up here, the clouds feel closer, almost touchable, their edges crisp against the endless blue. A monk explains that altitude strips away distractions down below the world's noisy, but at 16,000 feet, it's just you, the sky, and the clouds' true selves. You're squinting at a wispy cloud, and yeah, it looks more alive up here, like it's whispering its secrets. This practice has historical roots. In the 15th century, Tibetan monks built high-altitude retreats, like those near Mount Kailash, to deepen their spiritual focus. They believed elevation brought them closer to the divine, sharpening their insight into nature's signs. That's the mainstream fact. But here's the quirky tidbit. Some monks claim the thinner air let them see clouds' past lives, like catching glimpses of their karmic resumes. You imagine a monk staring at a cloud and muttering, "Yup, that one was a grumpy yak herder," and it's hard not to grin. The monks around you are settling onto a flat ledge, their eyes locked on the sky. They're pointing at a cloud that's all soft curves, glowing like it's lit from within. Pure and elder, says his voice, barely carrying over the wind. Up here, the clouds' personalities pop. Every shade, every movement feels deliberate. You're noticing things you missed. Below, the way a cloud's edges shimmer, like it's nervous, or how another seems to pulse, like it's got a heartbeat. Historians still argue whether this high-altitude focus was about spiritual clarity or just better weather observation. But right now, it feels like you're staring into the sky's soul. You're trying it too. Your notebook open as you scribble about a cloud that's drifting slow and steady. Confident, you mutter, and a younger monk nods, adding, "And wise." You're stoked, but then you spot that storm cloud from earlier, still lurking like it's got a vendetta. Up here, it looks even meaner, its dark core churning like a bad mood. "Still burdened," the elder says, and you nod, remembering its old soul vibe. You're starting to get why altitude matters. It's like the clouds are baring their hearts, and you're close enough to hear them. Here's a quick joke. Why do clouds love high peaks? Better views, worse Wi-Fi. You smirk, but the monks are focused, their chants rising in a low hum that seems to vibrate the air. You remember that generous cloud from the dawn ritual. It's up here too, looking smug as ever, like it knows it's the star of the show. The monks say the thin air sharpens their intuition, letting them sort clouds with pinpoint accuracy. You're feeling it too. The sky so vivid, it's like you're inside it. Every cloud a character in a story. You're just starting to read. As the wind howls, the monks' voices weave into it, their focus unshakable. You're gasping a bit, Okay a lot, but you're hooked. Your eyes darting between clouds like you're decoding a cosmic puzzle. That pure cloud is breaking apart now. Its wisps fading like a sigh. You feel a pang like you're losing a friend, but the monks just nod like it's all part of the cycle. Up here, the sky's not just above you. It's with you. And you're starting to think those old monks were onto something about seeing past lives in the clouds. You're still catching your breath on that high Tibetan peak. The air so thin, it feels like you're sipping oxygen through a coffee stirrer. The clouds up here are vivid, their personalities practically shouting. And your notebook's a wild scribble of pure and wise clouds. The monks, unfazed by the altitude, are now guiding you to a small stone hut, its walls etched with faded mantras. Inside, they pull out something special. Ancient journals, leather-bound and smelling like time itself, filled with centuries of cloud personality records. You're about to dive into these dusty pages where monks long gone sorted clouds just like you're doing now. And it's like stepping into a skybound time machine. Picture yourself huddled in the dim hut, a single yak butter lamp flickering as the monks open a journal. The pages are brittle, inked with tight Tibetan script, in tiny sketches of clouds, some puffy, some jagged, each labeled with traits like merciful or defiant. You're running your fingers over the parchment, feeling the weight of history. These journals aren't just diaries. They're a record of the sky's moods, a chronicle of how clouds reflected the world's spiritual pulse. A monk points to a sketch of a wispy cloud labeled Wanderer, and you can almost see it drifting across a long-ago sky. This practice has deep roots. By the 16th century, Tibetan monasteries like Drepung were centers of learning where monks documented natural phenomena alongside spiritual insights. These cloud journals were part of that blending observation with mysticism to guide rituals and predict harvests. That's the mainstream fact. But here's the quirky tidbit. Some monks believed copying these journals by hand could earn spiritual merit, like racking up cosmic bonus points. You imagine a monk, hunched over a page, muttering prayers as he traces a cloud shape, and it's oddly heartwarming, like doodling for enlightenment. The monks are turning pages now, showing you entries from decades, even centuries ago. One describes a grieving cloud that lingered during a drought. Its tears rain, saving a village. Another warns of a vengeful cloud that unleashed hail after a sacred site was defiled. You're struck by how alive these descriptions feel, like the clouds were family members with quirks and grudges. Historians still argue whether these journals were poetic allegories or early weather logs. But in this hut, they're sacred. Each entry, a snapshot of a monk's bond with the sky. You're handed a journal, its cover worn soft as velvet, and asked to read an entry. You stumble over the script, but a younger monk translates a cloud labeled joyful, sketched with soft round edges seen during a festival. You picture it bobbing above a crowd like it's dancing to the drums. You're starting to see patterns. Clouds labeled joyful often appear in spring, while restless ones show up before storms. It's like the monks were building a personality database, and you're geeking out wondering if that generous cloud from the dawn ritual has a rap sheet in here. Here's a quick joke. Why don't clouds write memoirs? They just get lost in the mist. You smirk, but the monks are focused, their fingers tracing sketches like they're reconnecting with old friends. You remember that storm cloud, the burdened one still lurking out there, and you're half tempted to check if it's got a history of bad behavior. The journals mention clouds like it's storm spirits with heavy karma, often tied to times of strife. You're jotting notes, your hand cramping, but you can't stop. These pages make the sky feel eternal. Like every cloud you've seen today is part of a story that's been unfolding for centuries. As the lamp flickers, the monks' voices soften, chanting a prayer for the clouds recorded here, like they're honoring their ancestors' work. You're swept up, feeling the weight of time in this tiny hut. The journals are more than records. They're a bridge between you and those long-ago monks, all of you watching the same sky, sorting the same souls. You glance outside, where the clouds are still drifting, and it hits you, that pure cloud from the peak. The one that faded like a sigh might be, in these pages someday, its story waiting for a monk to write it down. You're back on that Tibetan cliff, the stone hut's musty journals still lingering in your mind like a half-remembered dream. The sky's a restless churn of clouds, their personalities sharper now that you've seen centuries of their stories scratched into leather. Your notebooks bursting with joyful and vengeful clouds, but the vibes shifting. A group of outsiders, modern types with fancy cameras and skeptical smirks has shown up, their boots crunching the gravel. They're here to challenge the monks' cloud sorting as folklore, maybe even superstition, and the tension's thicker than that storm cloud still brooding out there. You're caught in the middle, wondering if this ancient practice can hold up under their scrutiny, or if it's about to unravel like a fraying wisp. Picture yourself standing between the monks, calm but steely, and these newcomers who look like they'd rather be debunking Bigfoot. One guy, all clipboard and superiority, calls the cloud sorting quaint and says it's just primitive weather guessing. The monks don't flinch, but you feel the sting for them. You're glancing at that generous cloud from the dawn ritual still smugly fluffing itself up, and you're tempted to point at it and say, "Explain that personality, buddy." But the monks are cooler than you, their eyes fixed on the sky, like they're above the noise. Still, you sense a quiet defensiveness, like they're guarding a treasure these outsiders can't see. This clash isn't new. In the 19th century, when Western explorers and missionaries flooded Tibet, they often dismissed local practices as pagan or unscientific. British surveyor George Everest, yep, the mountain guy, wrote off Tibetan sky rituals as fanciful in his 1830s reports. That's the mainstream fact. But here's the quirky tidbit. Some of those skeptics got spooked when monks predicted storms with eerie accuracy, claiming clouds warned them. One journal even mentions a missionary who swore a cloud followed him after he mocked a ritual. You picture a grumpy cloud tailing a guy in a pith helmet, and it's peak petty. The outsiders are poking around now, snapping photos and asking pointed questions. How do you prove a cloud has a personality? One demands, like she's cross-examining a witness. An elder monk replies, "You don't prove. You see." It's cryptic, but it lands like a mic drop. You're scribbling it down, feeling a mix of awe and frustration. The monk system, built on wind altitude and centuries of journals, doesn't fit into spreadsheets. Historians still argue whether these practices were intuitive meteorology or spiritual storytelling, but the outsiders want hard data, not vibes. You're torn because part of you gets their point, but you felt the skies pulse up here. You decide to chime in, pointing at a wispy cloud that's trailing a bigger one. That one's loyal, right, you say, hoping to bridge the gap. The younger monk nods, but clipboard guy snorts, muttering about anthropomorphism. You're annoyed, but you get it calling a cloud loyal. Sounds like something you'd hear at a crystal shop. Still, you remember those journals, the way wanderer clouds match spring migrations, or how grieving ones preceded rains. It's not just poetry. It's pattern recognition, honed over generations. You're starting to think the monks are playing chess while the skeptics are stuck on checkers. Here's a quick joke. Why don't clouds care about critics? They just blow over it. You smirk, but the tension's real. The monks keep sorting, pointing at a cloud they call curious, its edges stretching like it's eavesdropping. The outsiders roll their eyes, but you notice one of them, a quiet woman with a weather app frowning at the storm cloud. It's closer now. Its burdened vibe heavier than ever, and she mutters about unstable fronts. You catch a monk's eye, and he winks like he knows they're accidentally proving his point. It's a small win, but it feels good. As the wind picks up, the outsiders huddle, their confidence wobbling. The monks chant softly, unfazed, their focus on the sky unshaken. You're straddling two worlds, logic and mystery, and it's dizzying. That curious cloud is breaking apart now, like it's done snooping, and you feel a pang, like the sky's siding with the monks. You're not sure who's right, but you're leaning toward the ones who've spent lifetimes listening to the clouds, not just measuring them. You're still on that Tibetan cliff, the outsiders' skeptical voices fading into the wind as the monks hold their ground, their eyes glued to the sky. The tension from the skeptics' challenge lingers, but the monks are unfazed, their focus sharp as ever. Now, you're following a younger monk, Tenzin, who's got one foot in the old ways and another in the modern world. He's blending the ancient art of cloud sorting with meteorology, trying to bridge the gap between spiritual intuition and science. You're about to see how he pulls this off, and it's like watching someone translate poetry into equations without losing the magic. The sky's alive with clouds, and you're wondering if Tenzin's approach might just quiet those clipboard-wielding doubters. Picture yourself trailing Tenzin to a small ledge where he set up a makeshift weather station. Think battered anemometer, a cracked laptop, and a thermos of butter tea. He's pointing at a cloud, the curious one from earlier, now reforming into a tighter shape. It's shifting with the jet stream, he says, then adds, but it's still seeking. You're floored. Here's a guy who checks wind speeds, but still talks about clouds like they've got souls. He's got a notebook like yours, but his is half graphs, half sketches of clouds labeled patient or bold. You're geeking out because this is the crossover episode you didn't know you needed. This blend of old and new has historical precedent. In the late 19th century, when Western science trickled into Tibet via trade routes, some monks started incorporating tools like barometers into their rituals. Jesuit missionary Ippolito Desideri noted in 1716 that Tibetan monks were curious about European weather instruments, even if they didn't ditch their spiritual lens. That's the mainstream fact. But here's the quirky tidbit. A few monks reportedly used telescopes to read clouds closer, claiming the magnified view revealed their inner temperament. You picture a monk squinting through a lens, muttering, "Yup, that cloud's definitely sulky," and it's peak nerd energy. Tenzin's showing you his laptop, now pulling up a weather model that predicts rain from that burdened storm cloud still looming like it's got a grudge. Science says it's a low-pressure system. He explains, then points at the sky. But its heart is heavy, carrying old pain. You're scribbling furiously, loving how he weaves data with intuition. He checks wind patterns, but also listens to the breeze like it's whispering the cloud's mood. Historians still argue whether this fusion was a practical evolution or a way to preserve tradition under pressure. But Tenzin's living proof, it works. The outsiders are watching, and you catch clipboard guy looking less smug, maybe even intrigued. You try your hand at it, pointing at a fluffy cloud that's glowing golden. That one's stable. Maybe happy, you say? Glancing at Tenzin's screen for clues. He checks his data nods and says, content, and it'll bring soft rain. You're stoked, feeling like you just aced a cosmic pop quiz. Tenzin's approach makes the monk's system feel less like folklore and more like a hybrid wisdom, part lab, part temple. You remember that generous cloud from the dawn ritual still fluffing itself up like a diva. Tenzin calls it benevolent, but his laptop says it's just a cumulus humulus. You're starting to think both are true. Here's a quick joke. Why don't clouds trust weather apps? They prefer their own forecasts. You smirk, but Tenzin's focused, cross-referencing his journal with a satellite map. He's tracking that storm cloud, noting how its burdened vibe aligns with a cold front. The outsiders are hovering one of them, a meteorologist, asking Tenzin about his methods. He answers calmly, mixing terms like vorticity with karmic weight, and you can see her brain short-circuiting. It's a small victory, like the skies backing Tenzin up. You're jotting notes, your hand cramping, but you can't stop. This is where the past and future collide. As the wind shifts, Tenzin's chants blend with the hum of his laptop fan, a weirdly perfect harmony. The clouds keep drifting, their personalities vivid, against the data streams. You're caught up, feeling like you're part of something bigger, a bridge between worlds. That content cloud is spreading now, like it's smiling, and you're starting to believe Tenzin's got the best of both the monk's ancient wisdom and the tools to prove it. The sky's speaking, and you're listening with new ears. You're still on that Tibetan cliff, the wind carrying the faint hum of Tenzin's laptop as he blends cloud sorting with meteorology. Your notebook's a chaotic mix of benevolent clouds and jet stream notes, and you're buzzing from seeing the old ways hold their own against the skeptics. The air's electric. Now, not just from that burdened storm cloud still lurking, but because the monks are gearing up for something big, the Festival of Skies, a vibrant celebration, where they showcase their cloud sorting to awed villagers. You're about to join this colorful chaos, where clouds aren't just weather, they're the stars of a spiritual spectacle, and you're wondering if you'll spot that smug, generous cloud stealing the show. Picture yourself descending the cliff, the monastery coming alive below. Prayer flags snap like confetti, and the village squares packed with locals in bright chubas, their faces lit with anticipation. Stalls sell yak butter tea and steamed buns while kids dart around pointing at the sky. The monks are front and center, their robes a splash of maroon against the crowd. They're chanting, gesturing at clouds with the gravitas of conductors, and the villagers hang on every word. You're swept into the energy, clutching your notebook like it's a festival program, ready to see the monks turn the sky into a story. This festival has deep roots. In the 17th century, Tibetan monasteries hosted seasonal gatherings to share spiritual practices with lay people, often tying them to harvests or monsoons. The Festival of Skies, held in regions like Kham, was one such event where monks interpreted clouds to guide planting or prayers. That's the mainstream fact. But here's the quirky tidbit. Some festivals included cloud dances where villagers mimicked cloud movements to honor their spirits. You spot a group of teens swaying like wispy clouds, and it's half adorable, half hilarious, like a TikTok trend from 1600. The monks are in full swing now, pointing at a plump, golden cloud and calling it auspicious. The crowd cheers, tossing barley flour into the air like it's a rock concert. You're scribbling notes, catching phrases like welcoming and steadfast as the monks sort clouds for all to see. They're not just naming personalities. They're weaving a narrative saying, this sky promises good rains, maybe even prosperity. Historians still argue whether these festivals were about community bonding or practical forecasting. But here, it's both a party with a purpose. You spot Tenzin, his laptop tucked away, chanting alongside the elders, proving he's as monk as he is meteorologist. You're pulled into the action when a villager hands you a small prayer flag and says, "Choose a cloud." You hesitate, then point at that generous cloud from the dawn ritual, still fluffing itself up like it knows it's fabulous. "That one's kind," you say, and the villager beams, tying your flag to a pole. You're blushing, but it feels right, like you're part of the story. The monks nod approval, and you're wondering if that cloud's smirking at you. The storm cloud's still out there, though, and the monks call it restless warning of rains that could flood. The crowd murmurs, but their trust in the monks is rock solid. Here's a quick joke. Why do clouds love festivals? They get all the attention without lifting a wisp. You smirk, but the energy's infectious. The monks are now leading a chant, their voices rising as villagers join in a sea of sound under the vast sky. You're noticing details, the way a welcoming cloud seems to glow brighter, or how kids mimic its shape with scarves. It's theater, spirituality, and science rolled into one, and you're hooked, your notebook forgotten as you clap along. The outsiders are here too, their cameras rolling, and you catch clipboard guy looking less snarky, maybe even moved. As the sun dips, the festival peaks the sky, a canvas of clouds that feel like they're performing just for you. The monks' voices soar, and you're swept up, feeling the weight of centuries in every chant. That auspicious cloud is spreading now, like it's blessing the crowd, and you're starting to believe the sky's got a heart. The festival's a reminder the monks' cloud sorting isn't just tradition. It's a living, breathing bond between people and the heavens, and you're right in the middle of it, flag in hand, grinning like a kid. You're still buzzing from the Festival of Skies, the villagers' cheers and fluttering prayer flags fading as you climb back to the cliff with the monks. The sky's quieter now, but that generous cloud is still up there, preening like it knows it nailed its festival cameo. Your notebook's a riot of auspicious and restless clouds, but the mood's shifting. The monks' faces are tighter, their voices softer as they talk about a growing threat: modernization. It's not just the skeptics with their cameras, it's roads tech, and a world that's moving too fast, risking the erosion of their cloud sorting tradition. You're about to feel the weight of their fear, like a cloud heavy with unshed rain, and it's hitting you harder than you expected. Picture yourself sitting cross-legged on the cliff, the monastery, a distant glow below. The monks are gathered, their robes pooling like shadows, and an elder Khalsang speaks in a voice like worn stone. He talks about young monks leaving for cities lured by jobs and screens, while villages trade skywatching for weather apps. The cloud sorting once a lifeline between earth and heavens is fading like a story no one tells anymore. You're looking at that burdened storm cloud still brooding out there, and it feels like a metaphor for the monk's worry, something heavy looming hard to shift. This threat has historical echoes. In the 20th century, Tibet faced waves of change. Chinese annexation, global tourism, and Western influence chipped away at traditional practices. By the 1950s, monasteries were disrupted, and rituals like cloud sorting were sidelined as backward. That's the mainstream fact. But here's the quirky tidbit. During the Cultural Revolution, some monks hid cloud journals in caves, risking everything to save their sky stories. You imagine Khalsang's ancestors tucking leather-bound pages under rocks, and it's like a secret mission for the clouds, equal parts brave and heartbreaking. Khalsang's pointing at the sky, now tracing a wispy cloud he calls fleeting. Like our ways, he says, and you feel a pang. The monks aren't just sorting clouds. They're preserving a worldview, one where the sky's alive, every wisp a soul or sign. But modernity's relentless satellite forecasts don't care about fleeting or steadfast, and kids down in the village are more into TikTok than prayer flags. Historians still argue whether these traditions can survive globalization, or if they're destined to dissolve like clouds in a storm. But up here, the monks are fighting to hold on. You're quiet. Your notebook. Open but untouched. You try to lighten the mood, pointing at that generous cloud and saying, "At least that one's sticking around, right?" Khalsang's lips twitch, but his eyes stay heavy. He says even generous clouds fade if no one watches them. You're struck by how personal this feels, like the monks are losing family, not just rituals. You remember Tenzin blending meteorology with tradition and wonder if his laptop could be a lifeline, but even he admitted young monks are scarce. The festival was vibrant, sure, but how many villagers will pass this on? Here's a quick joke. Why don't clouds fear change? They're used to blowing away. You smirk, but it falls flat against the monk's quiet resolve. They're chanting now, a low hum that feels like a plea to the sky. You're noticing details, the way Khalsang's hands tremble slightly, or how a younger monk glances at the horizon, like he's searching for hope. That fleeting cloud is gone, now dissolved into the dusk, and you feel its absence like a warning. The storm cloud's still out there, its burdened weight a mirror of the monk's fears, and you're starting to think it's more than weather. As the light fades, the monk's chants grow softer, weaving into the wind. You're caught up your heart heavy with their struggle. The sky's still alive, clouds drifting like they always have, but you're seeing it through the monk's eyes now, a fragile story at risk of being forgotten. You want to say something, promise. You'll spread the word, but words feel small against the vastness of the sky and the weight of time. For now, you just listen, notebook in hand, hoping the clouds hear the monk's prayers. You're still on that Tibetan cliff, the dusk settling like a soft blanket. The sky, now, a tapestry of fading clouds. Your notebook's brimming with fleeting clouds and modernization's threats, and the monk's quiet chants still hum in your ears. The weight of their fear, that this cloud sorting tradition might vanish sits heavy, but there's a shift now. The monks are turning their gaze forward, speaking of legacy, of passing their skybound wisdom to new generations. You're about to witness their hope, fragile but fierce, that the clouds will always find someone to read their stories. It's a bittersweet moment, and you're ready to see how this ancient practice might endure like a wisp of vapor holding strong against the wind. Picture yourself sitting among the monks, the air cool and still, the monastery's lights twinkling below like grounded stars. Khalsang, the elder, points at a soft silvery cloud, calling it enduring. He says it's a sign clouds come and go, but their essence, their stories live on if someone watches. You're looking at that cloud, its edges glowing faintly, and it feels like a promise. The monks are training a few young novices, kids with wide eyes and quick laughs, to sort clouds, to listen to the wind, to keep the sky's secrets. You're struck by their determination, like they're planting seeds in a storm. This hope has historical roots. In the 21st century, after decades of upheaval, Tibetan monasteries began revival efforts teaching traditional practices to youth despite modernization's pull. Post-2000s cultural programs, like those at Labrang Monastery, trained novices in rituals tied to nature. That's the mainstream fact. But here's the quirky tidbit. Some monks started using smartphones to photograph clouds, sharing their sketches on WeChat to hook kids on skywatching. You picture a novice snapping a pic of that generous cloud, captioning it Sky MVP, and it's a spark of hope, like tradition sneaking into the digital age. The monks are showing you a novice now, a boy named Dorje, maybe 12, who's pointing at a wispy cloud and calling it playful. His voice is shy, but sure, and Khalsang nods, his eyes crinkling with pride. Dorje's got a tiny journal already smudged with ink, and you're grinning, remembering your own messy notes. The monks believe if even one kid like Dorje carries this forward, the clouds will never be voiceless. Historians still argue whether these revival efforts can outpace globalization. But up here, Dorje's focus feels like a tiny, defiant victory against time. You're trying it one last time, pointing at that enduring cloud and saying, "That one's stubborn in a good way." Dorje giggles, and Khalsang says, "Resilient." You're stoked, feeling like you've earned a monk high five. The storm cloud's still out there, its burdened weight softer now, like it's letting go. You're thinking of Tenzin's laptop, the festival's joy, the hidden journals, each a thread in this legacy. The monk's chants rise a gentle wave, and you're swept up your notebook, heavy with stories you'll carry home. Here's a final joke. Why do clouds trust monks? They know their secrets are safe. You smile, but the moment's too big for laughs. The sky's darkening, the clouds fading into twilight, and you're feeling the weight of everything. The monk's fears, their hope, their unbreakable bond with the sky. Dorje's sketching now, his pencil scratching softly, and you know the clouds will have a voice as long as he's watching. It's not a guarantee, but it's enough, like a single star holding steady in the dusk. The air grows cooler. Now the cliff's edges blurring into the soft gray of evening. You're sitting still, your breath slow, the monk's chants fading like a lullaby. The sky feels vast, gentle, its clouds dissolving into the night, each one a story tucked away for another day. You're thinking of Dorje, his small hands clutching that journal, and Khalsang's steady gaze trusting the sky to endure. It's okay to let go now, to let the clouds drift to rest in the quiet they leave behind. The world feels softer, the stars peeking through whispering that the monk's wisdom, like the wind, will find a way to carry on. Close your eyes, feel the hum of the earth beneath you, and let the sky's stories cradle you into sleep. Sweet dreams.